Hello amateurs, welcome to another episode of the Amateur Rugby Podcast, here to help soothe your Sunday morning hangover with some wonderful rugby chats about the grassroots of the game. I'm your host Tim, and I've got another fantastic guest for you today. But, well, you've already met him. This man has been on the pod before, and more than once actually. But his rugby journey has taken an interesting turn, so I thought we'd get him back on to talk about it. So please welcome Mr. Chris Swann. Chris, how are you?
Yeah, mate, I'm all good, thank you.
Okay, amazing. So if you want to go and hear about what Chris was up to, you can find the previous episode, but just give us a quick recap of the role that you did in the club and what kind of level it was at.
Yeah, so prior to where I am now, I spent 4 years as a director of rugby at CS Stags up in level 5, and it was a joke. Like, it was the best and most stressful 4 years I think I've ever had in the game, and probably of my life really. Like the stories, the people, the ups and downs were laughable really. And yeah, stepped away because I think you run out of ideas after a certain amount of time, and you need to take a moment to understand where you're at, what's next, like where's the passion. And if you can't kind of continue at the pace you're at, then it is right to step away. And so when you look around and see people being at clubs 15, 16 years, I do often wonder, well, what's the ceiling of that club now if it hasn't changed? So I thought it's best to jump out and then hopefully come back in somewhere else at some point.
Amazing. Okay, and I know you've been looking for a new role. What have been the challenges involved in finding, your next project, your next thing to get stuck into?
I think it's quite tricky because you have to really understand yourself and what you like. Like, you speak to a lot of clubs, and I spoke to quite a few in the off season, and there's roles out there for sure, and there always will be, but it's making sure you find one. For me, a big thing is alignment from the top down. So if it's a club with has seniors all the way down to juniors, right, okay, well, how synced up are they? And what's a willingness to be synced up? What's the reputation? And not all the clubs are right. And for me, most of them weren't really what I would enjoy. And I think you're kind of, your face wouldn't fit, and that's fine. But it's understanding why your face wouldn't fit and understanding what you really like. So that's good. But it's taken a while to really understand what that journey will look like for myself. And for me, if I look back at Stags, what I really enjoyed was the building process. So I think taking a club when it's kind of not on its knees per se, but it's in a bit of a difficult place, and trying to really strip it back to the foundations and what the core is, and then put those foundations back in place a bit more solid. That for me is what I enjoy, like the team building element, the structure. And every club is on its own different journey, and it's just finding the right one. So yeah, I think that's kind of been the revelation for myself. Is I thought, okay, cool, it'll be nice, I'll go to like just a local town club, but it's not just that, is it? It's never just about the badge or the logo or the level. It's, well, what's the situation? Where do they want to get to? Why do they want to get there? What are the intentions? What's the identity of a club? Do they understand the identity? Why do the players play there? There's all these questions you have to ask. And a lot of people will jump in two-footed and be like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and this, without really taking the time to understand it. And more often than not, if it doesn't fail quickly, it can be a gradual decline until... And then what's the expectations of the board? Are they realistic? Are they unrealistic? What's the timelines? Taking the time to understand the justifications behind the timeline. So it's all these questions you have to kind of ask, but more often than not, people don't do that. And more often than not, these clubs haven't thought about it. And so if they haven't thought about it, why haven't they thought about it? And then are they willing to listen as well? Are they willing to think about it? Is it a Pandora's box of problems? And so you're thinking, do you know what, mate? I'm actually okay. I'd rather leave that alone. But you've got to tackle the nasty. And luckily, with Stags, you've seen the nasty. It cannot get any worse. So there's nothing to be scared of now. So that was quite a nice feeling. It's kind of like, yeah, I know where I'm at now. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And there's lots of clubs around which have, I don't know, structures in place or people in place, but they're forfeiting games left, right, and centre, and we're in October. And that's not a criticism. That's, for me, I've been there. We've been there a few years ago. We forfeited 2 of our first 5 games, and it was horrible. And the reasons were down to front row availability. So it's never to look at a club and go, oh, they're doing pretty shit. No, it's like, okay, cool. So why are you in this situation? What's the plan to get out of it? Like, really simple questions. Why are the players here in the first place? Do you really understand that? Because if you don't, how can anyone be on the boat? And how are you going to have, if the lads aren't on a boat, it ain't coming through the storm. At that point, it's irrelevant what the board wants to do.
Yeah, so, interesting. It sounds like you've spoken to quite a number of people. Just give me an idea of kind of like the variation in where clubs are at, between really well organised and well run compared to a bit of a shambles.
Yeah.
What's been, obviously without naming names, but what's been your experience?
Yeah, so the ones I feel bad for and the ones I've spoken to, so there's clubs which have been at level 4 and level 5 and now are on that slippery slope, gradual decline, yet their structures are the same in place. And so my questions with those clubs is, why have you left it the same? Is it arrogance? Is it an unwillingness to change? Is it just not an understanding of the rugby landscape anymore? Are you built for the current playing environment? If not, that's okay. What are you going to do to change it? Do you understand your local environment? Do you understand your new playing group? Do you understand what's coming up through the club? Are you lucky enough to have players who are coming up through the club? What is in your local area? Have you got the universities? Have you got colleges? Fantastic. Okay, what do their players do? Why do they do it? Like, taking the time to go to the clubs which are being more successful, watching training sessions. I suggested to them, go watch a couple of training sessions, go and watch a match preparation. So speak to their coaches, understand what they do, go and watch the match, go and watch how they manage the situation, and then speak to everyone afterwards. I think it's these sorts of things, just be willing to step out of your comfort zone. And there's some really good community groups where coaches come together. But unfortunately, it's not just coaches who need to do it. It needs to be board members or, boards, VP, whatever, people who seem to have control of a situation. They need to step out and have those conversations. Because until they understand that landscape, it's very hard to get off that slope.
Yeah.
Whereas other clubs are bang on. They're having these conversations. They're actively involved in their community. They're speaking to other clubs. They have regular touch points with all their players, but not just their first team players, so their second team players, their third team players. Each of these different squads will have its own culture and have its own way of doing things, but ultimately they all going in the same direction, so they all buy in. And for me, those clubs are just spot on. But I don't think there's any point me working in one of those, because that is the end goal. If I look at where CS are now, they've gone from the foundations are in place. They're building numbers. They've now got a second team in the league, and their first team won 3 out of 5 games. Yet they're still training on a third or half a pitch once a week. Still less tackle shields than probably toilet roll. Like, there's clubs out there who are getting it right, and I would actively encourage clubs who are open enough to realise where they're at to go and spend time with them, to go and understand them. I don't think it's as tribal as it once was, or it's certainly not as tribal in the lower age groups than it once was.
Yeah, interesting. So I've witnessed this as well with some clubs that seem to just be running really well. They're really well aligned. And I wonder what it is. Can you drag out some of the secrets maybe of what you think it is that these clubs have managed to do that's maybe some of the others that have got their sort of head in the sand a little bit haven't?
I think it's understanding the player group, and it's also understanding, well, in fact, before that, it's going back to that alignment piece. Like, if you think of it like a rowing boat, if you have a representative from your senior, your junior, your youth, captains, whatever, if they've all got their own oar, but if they all have their own agenda, that boat is going to get absolutely pumped in a race. Whereas if everyone is aligned in that boat pulling the same way, and the chap at the top or the person at the top of the cox is telling people when to go, they're obviously going to win. Like, that alignment is so critical. Like, there's no time for hidden agendas. They become toxic. There's no time for, like, you see clubs and they operate like, I don't know, some third world coup, like military coup. They come in, they try and take people out, and you're thinking, right, okay, that's great, well done, pat on the back, good for you, and where are we now? Like, it hasn't helped anyone. So I think the alignment top down, keeping touch points with players, understanding why players played there in the first place really well, and also then from a recruitment angle, making sure those players are heard, but then actively encouraging them to bring their friends. And it's not like getting in the circle at the end of session saying, right, lads, you've done really well here, really proud of you, and make sure you give everyone crap who's not been here, because they don't, mate. Like, and it's like they're obviously not here for a reason, and that says to me you're not understanding the reason they're not here. Do you see what I mean? So, like, you're not digging into the why people aren't here, and then the more empowerment you start to give to players, they become your sales reps, and they are organically going to bring their friends. Like, okay, actually, I'm aware this guy has just graduated from Northumbria. Okay, normally the first teams are made up of probably third years, which means there's probably a bunch of lads who are going to be graduating too. Fantastic. Right, he can then go and speak to all of these different people. But he wants to do it because he's bought into the club and he understands the club, but if they aren't bought into the club, you automatically lose that connection to all of those potential pool of players. And so I think it's that sort of thing the good clubs do really, really well. And naturally, there's niceties if they can afford it, like, we're going to do team dinners, fantastic. But all of that stuff is incremental on the core of just understanding people. Rugby is about people at the end of the day. Some people are driven by material things. That's fine. And sometimes you need those people to come in and bolster squads. But at the end of the day, material things run out. They're not finite. They're not a finite resource. So whereas if you have a core intrinsic understanding from the top down and with your players, you are going to be in a much more sustainable place than if you're chucking stash and be like, oh, mate, come in, don't pay sub, have this, have that. Physio's going to, I don't know, dry your socks for you. It's going to be amazing. It doesn't last. It's like, it's so gimmicky.
So if a club hasn't really...
I don't know if physios dry socks, by the way.
If a club hasn't got its kind of true purpose and its core sort of beliefs, what are some tactics maybe or sort of thoughts around how they might find that or develop that over a period of years?
Yeah, so I think getting that identity is a key one. Like, what does Charmander Rugby mean? Like, what does this rugby club stand for? Like, what is that? Why are we here? What is the purpose? Where do we want to get to? Are we a community club? Like, do we want to be active? Are we going to be at every single village fair? We don't care about the level. We want to make sure we are an inclusive club, which makes people come to watch us. They come and spend money with us. They want to bring their kids to come in and play, because it's not like, we want to play rugby. No, we want to be part of the club. And the rugby is secondary. And that then may dictate how you go about your recruitment, how you go about how you speak to your players, all that type of thing. I think, honestly, it's just speaking and being open to change. Clubs can move quickly when they want to. And clubs can be agile when they want to. I often think sometimes there's a fear of change. Or if this goes wrong, I might lose my coffee privileges on match day. Okay, good for you. But that's very single-minded. But if something goes wrong, great, fail fast, move on to the next thing. But if you're not trying new things, you're never gonna change. Like, it doesn't take. You don't need to have a massively drawn out corporate process to decide who's going to put the pads on the pitch. You don't need a massive drawn out process to say when the clubhouse is going to open. Oh yeah, we've got a meeting next week to decide about what games we're going to show on the TV in the back room just above the physio bed. Great, good for you, but why? Like, a lot of these decisions can be made like that, and I think sometimes it's almost like you've got a bunch of people who worked in big corporates and they've taken that because that's what they're used to, and they've kind of over time brought it into the rugby club because it feels professional. It's a way of flexing, I suppose. They're like, yes, this is the process I'm going to bring, and that's fantastic. But is it suitable for where you are today? And for a big behemoth of a club with lots of funds, and that may be necessary because it's the ripple effects of everything you do. But for a lot of these clubs, when they're struggling, Christ, you're going to continue to struggle till you change.
Yeah, let's talk about the challenge that you found. Then let's talk about the club that you've gone to, and what level they're at, what are the challenges, what's your role there, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So for me, like while I'm trying to work out, when I was working out what I want to do, I didn't want to lose that community because for me, rugby was more than just the game. It was kind of your mates. It was your social network. It was, to be honest, like it was what mental health day yesterday. There were some guys at Stags who were really important to me in terms of keeping me stable and grounded. And when I had a bad day, I could pick up the phone to. And so there's times where you feel quite isolated. So I wanted to find a new club, but not to be involved in, but just to play. I haven't played in years, and I was like, oh, can I really do this? Like, can I still catch a ball? And so I was like, right, okay, cool. I'll Google what is the lowest team I can play for, which is close. And luckily, it was Woking, and that's great because it actually means something to me because it's where I grew up. Like, it's your local town. It's level 12, which is the absolute pits of English rugby, and it's. It takes adjusting to, and it was so funny because you rock up there. They train once a week they train longer than Stags do, so that's one thing. Which is, it's kind of made me appreciate how fun CS was, like to train for an hour a week or hour and a bit a week and still play at level 5 is actually a piss take. Really, it shouldn't have happened, and it's quite funny. But like for level 12, it's perfect. And they rock up. They have their own floodlights, and that's great. And there's a real mix of ages. There's a couple of guys who look like they haven't developed since they were 13, and there's some of the grizzled old faces who you've probably seen on a picture in the old history classroom. So there's a real mix. But I would say like the guys are great, but they're different, and so they're different mix to the CS guys because of the demographics of the area. So it's been eye-opening in some ways. A lot of these guys probably haven't played rugby before seniors, and you're like, cool. So the rugby IQ is different, but they also have some really good strengths. And you look at some of them, and you'll be like, well, actually, there's 5 or 6 of them there who could easily jump up to level 7, level 6 straight away. And you think, Christ, there's some good guys here. But then it's their understanding of the game, and it's like it's quite nice to. They've got a really good coach there called Mark, who's taking the time to try and develop these lads. And you think it's going to be really good for the club. But what would be really nice now is actually understanding where these guys want to go if they actually want to go further in their rugby, and then it'd be good to see if the club would push them in that direction. Because then, one, if they stay, you've got some really good advocates. If they go, they'll probably come back in their later years anyway. And so it builds a sustainable model. But I mean, the games, man, like, my God, I've played 2, and it's so weird because there's an element of catching and passing which goes awry, like, just doesn't happen at times. Like, okay, cool, 2 phases, nice, drop ball, whatever. And then, but then we played one team, Mitcham, and I didn't really realise there was like rugby clubs in all these places. and they are like the nicest guys. Like the shirt, like my shirt was longer than my shorts. Like it was a piss take, and it's like every shirt seems to be from a different brand. I'm like for one, that's got to change at some point because you've got to start to get unified. But like, yeah, the shirt's like down below your knees, and it's just quite funny. But the players on the other team, they all look quite rough and rugged, but they're really nice blokes. So you can actually, like, I went on the wing, which is a joke in its first place, but it was, I don't know, mate. Like you're having a laugh and a joke while you're playing the game, and so it makes it quite fun. But then the flip
Right.
side is you go to other, like the first game was anyway, some Range Park, I think it was something around there, but it was just nasty. Like it was kind of the ugly side of the level, I would say, because you've got heavy blokes, rough around the edges in just a nice way. It's just how it is. But they're diving over the rucks in at the side, but like off their feet, and kind of like there's no arms of wrapping you. Like you're actually going to snap someone's leg here because you're beyond the fun side now. Like it's not funny. It's kind of, and then you're turning around and you're watching people punch people, and there's elbows in the back of the head, and you're like, I don't really want to be here. Like they're saying for me, like, and I don't think anyone really wanted to be there. And it's kind of that I think is actually, some people are really grand with it. Clearly they're all fine with it, otherwise they wouldn't do it. But I don't know if that's a good way for the game to go. Like there's a referee there, you know, someone punches someone, he's like, nah, it was a slap. He's like, mate, like, in what world is this what you want? So for me, for someone who's returning to the game who doesn't really like that sort of thing, it kind of put me off actually doing it again. But when you go up the levels, because you know your skill set is fine, like you don't get that really, because people their understanding of, no, we're here to play rugby, we're not here to fight, we're here to, you know, if we tackle hard, we'll tackle hard. There'll be the odd no arms off the ball because it happens, and we all try it, but we don't go out there actively to injure someone. And that for me is the difference. So you have the teams who are there to have fun in level 12, and they're just great. Like I honestly really enjoyed myself. I couldn't stop smiling. You then have, I don't know what other teams like, but then you have teams there who are shithousery, but like not like undoing your laces, Joe Marler type of shit out. Like, I don't know if this is fun, mate. Like this is assault actually. And so I think there's a fundamental, and it could be an isolated thing, right? It could just be a team, and you don't know until you go through the season. I don't know until I see it myself. But it's been a really good perspective. But then I would say, actually, for a club like Woking, what do they need to do? It's actually, do they have an identity? If I come in cold, I would say no. Like, who are Woking? I'm not quite sure, really. They are definitely odds and sods. They're lads from a local area who just want to play. Yeah, but what's the purpose? Like, where do they want to go? Why do they want to go there? What's the long-term plan? All this type of thing. For a club which is one club and one team, that should be pretty clear across everyone, and there shouldn't be a disconnect from here to here. You know, if someone comes in and feeds information for a training, but it's only kind of the odd sentence, fine. But like, I would actively encourage more communication across all clubs. So, you know, warts and all, like understand what's good, what's bad, because there's going to be collective intelligence out there where people will have good ideas from that playing group. But if they don't understand what's being discussed properly, then it's never going to go up. But mate, it's been good. Like I've kind of rekindled a little bit of love for rugby and whatnot, and like, but it does, seeing that and seeing what I had before, like it definitely helped on the epiphany side of actually this is what I want to do. I want to go to clubs, but clubs which are probably more on a higher grading, which is fine, to then take them to where maybe up to level 5 or up to level 4. That for me it's a good area. It's a good part of the game. But yeah, there's something quite humbling about level 12. Like there's a picture where we all run out of this like shoddy council-looking changing room, looking like Reservoir Dogs, just like in all odds and sods kit, like it's just perfectly amateur, you know. Like it's it's great. They don't pretend to be anything they're not. The guys will try hard. There's some guys there who will tackle very hard and they will run very hard. But fuck me, if there's one person in particular, if he could just look when he's passing, he would be so much better. Like instantly, he would be a much better player. But he just refuses to do it, and you're like, oh my god, sure. Like, and it's annoying because you want better for them, but like, there's just no, nah, I don't need it, mate. Don't need it.
So, what I want to pick up on from your experience at level 12 is you sort of mentioned about the thoughts of improving players and improving the club. But my wonder is, and my question is there actually an appetite for that? Do they see themselves as wanting to improve, or is just participation, just being there, is that enough?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? And so that's where I'd actively encourage that two-way communication, because you need to understand from your playing group what every player kind of wants, and it's small enough to do that. It's a bit of effort, but it's small enough to understand that. I think what the club wants is to survive, and it's been around for a while. I've always seen elements of kit knocking around the town centres and whatnot, and there's guys there who really try. Like there's a guy called Reese who's out there, bloody stapling recruitment posters to notice boards, like real old school stuff. I saw one on the high street, in my village high street the other day. I thought, bloody hell, he's everywhere. But like, I don't know. Is my honest answer. I think for now it's survival, build a player base, go from there. So it's very much in kind of sustainability mode. Like they're pretty good with their subs, to be fair. Like I think it's interesting because from a subs perspective, I think it's expensive personally. It's £25 a month to train once a week. The kit has got a slight markup on it. So what are you really getting? And from the outside looking in, because I haven't been there long enough to buy in, you're like, well, you could go to a Guildford or a Chobham you could go to any other town side, and it'd be probably a similar price, but there's more you'll benefit from, like a physio per se. Like that is key. So, but what I would then say is over 50% of the squad are already signed up, like well over 50%. And so I would say actually they are all bought in. Otherwise they wouldn't be paying it. And so great, you've got a bought-in player base. So what else can they do? What else can these guys do? If you understand why these guys are here, take an interest in them, what can you do to help them be your little recruitment agents? What can you do to help them? Like some lads help on social media, fantastic. Like everyone has to kind of chip in and pull because it's just about survival. I think, to be fair, we're on that track. Like I think it's good. It is good, but I don't know. This is very short-termism. It's tactical. It's season to season. So what's the aim for year 3? And then how the steps to get there? Because I used to think when I was younger, I'd be like, what if someone go, oh, what's your 3-year plan? What's your 5-year plan? I think, I'll jump off the bridge, mate. Like, chill out. It'll be fine. But actually, you do need to think about it. You do need to think about the foundations you're going to set at each of the different landmarks to get you to that point. And you've really got to understand the reason behind it before you really get it. And it took me a while to actually think that 3-year plan was a good idea. So actually, I've asked my challenge to them would be, what is the 3-year plan? How are you going to get there? How are you going to, so it's almost like having a vision, the ambitions, and then what are each of the steps underneath it to get you to those stages?
Yeah, it's I mean, playing devil's advocate here, and I've seen this at a number of clubs. So many of these clubs are just trying to get the post pads on. They're just trying to get a set of kit ready for Saturday. They're just trying to do the day to day. That they haven't got time to lift their head up and look beyond that. what would you say to that? You know, what would maybe your advice be to clubs that are in that situation where everybody's sort of working hard? Well, usually actually it's one or two people that are working really hard, and then a few people doing other bits and pieces. What would be your advice?
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's like you've just described it. It is literally, it's a pyramid process, isn't it? Like you've got some lads up here who are doing all the work, and then they manage to get in a close group around them, because that's what humans do. You develop like a close group of mates who then help you. But at the base of that pyramid is a bugger ton of people who you can get on board. And I would say, yes, there's a lot of clubs going effectively hand to mouth each week, trying to do the basic tasks to survive. I get it. I have literally been there, but trying to do it in a level 5 environment. So I understand it. And so I don't say it like in an arrogant way, but what you're doing now is not sustainable unless you're building towards something. Because otherwise you're just going and going and going and going and hoping. There's an element of hope in there that something changes or like someone comes along. But unfortunately, no one's going to do it for you if you don't. So you have to change something. You have to just go, right, bugger it. As of today, this is what we're doing. And you know what? It's a couple of late nights. It's a couple of late nights understanding it. And this is what people don't always understand. A lot of these roles are voluntary. A lot of this stuff is over and above what you do in your daily life. And so it's a lot of time staying up till 10, 11 o'clock at night on phone calls trying to understand something, which means you don't go to bed till 1 o'clock because your brain is wired. I mean, you're knackered the next day. But it just has to be done. And that's why passion is so key in this. And those people who are driving it, putting the pads out, you have to help them now. And because otherwise, if that passion will eventually drop. Like I've seen it, I saw it at Stags, like we lost coaches because of it. Like when that passion goes, there's no coming back from it. And if you lose those people and no one's there to step in, you're buggered. So they need to have a plan. They need to understand what they're doing and the purpose behind it. And they need to get more people in to do it. And I know it sounds really blinking obvious, but understanding why they need to get these people in and getting that story across. But the flip side is, I would then be saying, well, do you understand why your players are here? If I turned up to training and said, that person over there, that woman over there, that guy over there, why are they here? Do you have a concrete answer? Because in those clubs where you're racing around to put posts out, they more often than not, they're not big squads. So there's no reason not to understand it. Is everyone, if you're the two people there, is there alignment at the top to the bottom? Maybe not, if it's an established club, if there's only two people running around. So yeah, it comes back to alignment, it comes back to communication, and then the planning. Like, it doesn't have to be something concrete. It's not some blinking 50-page McKinsey report. Like it's just something you can all work towards and get behind. And it's just hard work. But what you're doing now is harder. So, mate, it should be fun too. Like it should be fun. But then it's only fun if you have a passion for it, I guess.
Let's look at this the other way up now. If there's any current players that are listening to this, or what maybe could a current player do if they're just listening to this, going, "Oh, I'd never really thought about any of this." What are some of the things that they could do?
Same thing, really. Is just ask. Say, look, I suppose, be observant. Like, there's a lot of players who will, okay, cool, training's over, all right, hoodies on, shuffle, pick up a bag, I'm out of there. Because you just don't, you're choosing not to observe what is happening in terms of people collecting up kit, helping people off the floor, getting people back in. Okay, cool. We need to lock up the change rooms. Oh, I can do that. It's just be observant to what's actually happening around you, and then just put your hand up and be like, okay, don't worry, mate. I'll go do that. I'll go take the physio bags back to the container. I've got it. Small things make a big difference, because otherwise, if you get to in the training session as a coach or whatever, and there's like 10 things you've now got to do, you ain't getting home for another half an hour. And if you're doing that week on week, you then feel it's your job. It shouldn't be your job. And it's just like extra faff. Like, I don't think, especially in lower level clubs, coaches don't get paid as much as they should do for the amount of time they actually put in. Like, their coaching time is not just the time they're doing on the field, it's everything else around it. It's for setting stuff up, putting stuff away. It should be for speaking to player, all this other thing. So for a player, just be observant. Go speak to the coaches, or if you feel like you can, or you know who you can, go and introduce yourself to different board members, different areas of the club. Oh, cool. What do you do? Why do you do it? Take an interest. And then if there's any areas, I'm not saying volunteer to clean the toilets, but if there's any areas you pick up on, which you think you can add value, just do it. It will help you to be more bought into the club. You'll get more, not just respect, but like it helps to build bonds. And if you're looking at long-term sustainable growth, that's what it's all about, really. Because again, it comes down to the people. If people aren't there, there's no club. So yeah, just stick your hand up, really.
Yeah, nice. Okay, let's talk about your playing then, Chris.
Yeah.
How did the body feel after the first game?
Oh, mate. So first game against those ruffians, proletarians from Rains Park, it was grim, mate. The first scrum, honestly, we must have gone in reverse in like an automatic Ferrari. Like we were motoring, and then straight away my neck was like, oh, that's pretty crap. My neck was like, all of a sudden you're straight away like this, and then it just put like a dampener on the whole game because every scrum was like it until the older heads came on, and even then, like it was still difficult. And yeah, so like I honestly, that combined with the stuff in the game, the next day I was like, F this, I don't need this. Like my body was wrecked for like 4 or 5 days, like till Friday basically. I couldn't really move it. The Mitcham one was excellent. My body was fine, mate. Like it was literally dilly-dallying around on the wing, fanning around. People don't... The beauty of this is like no one's really that quick, no one's really that strong, no one's really got unreal hands. So it's like, and it's not a criticism, it's just great because everyone's pretty similar. No one's good across the board. It's kind of uphill or downhill, whatever. And my body felt amazing, mate. Like you get run into, no dramas, that's fine. Absolutely no trouble. Like tackling, no issue. Should have got it out, mate. Got made the back of a newspaper. So Woking News and Mail, whenever it was, 2 weeks ago. I have 5 copies now, all signed them all. The big guy here just running down the wing. Fantastic. Like, and then it was just so good, man. Like caught their crossfield kick and then I was just went. I was like, this is great. And I was like, tried to celebrate by like calling for a substitution. Coach was having none of it. Like, fuck, that would have been awesome. I wanted to kind of just run off into the distance and be like, yeah, solid, I'm done. That's it. Tick the box. Right, I'm back up to DOR and see you later. That really rekindled the whole love for me. Like, I really doubted, for me personally, like rugby, I really doubted it for a long time. Like, am I strong enough? Am I fast enough? Am I durable enough? Do I understand? And like, honestly, like, demons really chewing your head. Like, can you actually do this? So that Rains Park game was horrible when I came away really in a dark place. But that Mitcham game was so fun. You're smiling ear to ear, and it's like, oh, I can do this. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I understand what's like, and it was just perfect. And it's one of those things where actually, yes, there's going to be some terrible games in this league, and yes, there's probably going to be a lot of game dropouts or walkovers because of availability. But there'll be some games in there for people who are returning to rugby or starting rugby, which I would actively encourage people to go and get involved in, because if you never played rugby before, just catch it and run. Go do either, go sit on a wing, catch it and run. You might get caught, you might not. Chances are they'll fall over their own laces. So, like, it's a really good standard for that. But I think it's also a really good standard for there's not really any egos in it. And that, I think that for me is the biggest thing. When you move up the leagues, the number of teams with slightly more players with egos in there, which is fine because you're going to get it with better players. But at this level, it's perfect because no one can have an ego. You can bring them back down to earth and say, you are playing level 12. You are in this swamp with the rest of us here, fella. If you're that good, go somewhere else. There's a reason you're here. And that's quite nice and refreshing. It's kind of just turn up, throw a ball around, go nuts, really.
Yeah, it's a really interesting subject. And I'm so... interested in what the way you said it, because I've always taken my rugby really seriously. That's just the way I've been. And I've been, I've been retired 10 years now from playing. But I played a game, half a game, I should say, a couple of months back, and really enjoyed it. Like, it was very much a social game. It was taken seriously, like everything was as it should be, but it was very much two teams playing for the enjoyment. And it's actually rekindled my love for it as well. And the thought of just playing the odd social game here and there now is very much something that I'm going to try and look out to do. So it's good to hear.
Yeah, and there's so many clubs like it as well, right? Like there's and so it's one of those things where just put your name down, even if you don't train. Like I guarantee you'll get a call at some point because there'll be shorter players. It's just, I don't know, it's just worth it for that in itself. I think there's a lot of people who, like myself, fell out of love with it, and yourself, you haven't played in a while. And do you know what? For purely selfish reasons, you might just need the pick me up, and that's fine too. I think because the rugby is different to different people. But we've got London French, I think, in the coming weeks. So LA, I don't even know what colour they're playing actually, but that should be good fun. It's just like, there was teams like London Sussex and London French. You're like, how many blinking like Londons are there? Like, it is nuts. So it's just quite funny seeing all these different clubs and teams and understanding what they're about, what they stand for, and there's lots of stories out there. And I guess this is why your podcast is good, because you speak to all these people. So
yeah, it's interesting that there's still the kind of thug element down at that level, because it's been removed from a huge amount of rugby now. I wonder how long it will take before it's removed altogether, because I did hear of a club recently that basically had their club taken away from them because nobody wanted to go and play them because they were that type of club. So I just wonder if, given another year or whatever, the clubs like this will start to just disappear.
So this is so interesting, right? Because when you speak to people who've been in rugby for a long time, it's often like board members. They're like, "Oh, back in my day, we used to ruck properly and tread over people." And you think, "Good for you, mate. Great, well done, good for you." But you come across these teams like this one we were speaking about earlier, and they're flying in off a ball like over rucks, like just shoulders, punching, elbowing. You think, you guys were not around in the era where that was deemed acceptable. So why do you think it's acceptable? And I think everyone has a role in that. For me, referees are so important, and a lot of them aren't paid, and they get their expenses or whatever. But so it's hard to make asks of them. But I think it starts with there. Like, if people are reffed out of the game and they are off the pitch, that is going to stop people. Ultimately, that is going to help to stop people doing stuff. These clubs will not get attention from the RFU a lot because they're not. Why waste your time when the RFU have 1,000,001 things to do? The local counties have 1,000,001 things to do. You're not going to be looking in the swamp. So it's actually really hard to tackle because you've actually got a group of 18, 20 lads there who like playing the way they do, and they have fun and they stay there and it's their mates. And rugby is a game for all. But what is rugby to these people? Understanding that and like, to me, I think probably the refereeing element is it. Like, it has to be so strict and so spot on. Like, get it. Like, you see it with the new tackle height law now. I barely hear any issues or complaints about it, and the referees have had a really good time with it for the whole part, and it's going really well. So why can't that filter all the way down? Like, I remember in that game, the ref was saying stuff like, "Oh, we'll do a bit of leeway," and like, fuck no. Have you seen these people? Like, why is there leeway? Like, he's going to take my head off? Like, literally, I don't want that. I've already got a fake tooth. I don't need my head taken off, mate. Like, I'm not here to do that. I'm here to throw an audacious miss pass, which is going to go into touch. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here to be stamped on. Yeah? Like, I'm here to roll my sleeves up and make it look like I've got really big arms, but actually I haven't. That's what I'm here for. I don't want my head shoved up my arse, right? Like, so, yeah. I don't know. It's like a really tricky question, isn't it? And it's so easy to go, oh, referees need to ref it better. But it would help if someone, okay, cool, you've actually elbowed someone, mate. See you later. Just not be afraid to just do it. No one would have a problem with it. Like, how do you argue that? Like, you've just watched someone elbow someone, they've been sent off. Great. And then how do you come back? You can't complain, can you? Because what can you say? Like, what? And so that would help. I think, I speak to the lads at Woking who say, there's teams which are always like this. But then my pushback is, well, why is that acceptable? Like, why has no one said anything? Why would you just not play them? Think, fuck it, we'll take the walkover, and then we'll write to the league sec and say, yeah, we're doing the walkover. Couldn't care less. This is the reason why. Don't fancy it. Until stuff like that happens, nothing's going to change.
That was my thought, that maybe, if they really are that bad and have been for a extended period of time, then boycotting the fixture would be a way to get it changed for sure.
Yeah, and this is it. I've only played them once, right? Like, actually no, that's a lie. Played in a tennis tournament years ago, and they were there, and it was like Binju's tennis tournament. It was great, like, it was amazing. He had like a jester's hat. If you scored with it on, you got extra points, whatever. And they were shit out of me then as well. So actually, that's a lie. I've done it twice, and they've always been like it. So I don't feel bad in saying it. I couldn't care less, actually, if someone heard it. But if it's just, I've had really two unfortunate occasions, fine. But I just don't think there's any place for it. Like, simple as that. Like, personally, if it was my decision, I think, bugger it, not playing you again, mate. Couldn't care less. Why would I want some little lad, 18-year-old, to potentially have his leg snapped or be punched in the face?
Yeah.
Unless this bloke's a lunatic and wants it.
Yeah. Okay, let's bring this section to a close, Chris. But before we do, have you got any other sort of like just observations on sort of level 12 rugby or anything attached to that?
No, mate, I just think it's like, it is what it is. And it's fine. Like, it should be fun. It should be for everyone. You should have some good players. You should have some players who are learning. And I think there's no arrogance with it. It's actually, in theory, the perfect amateur spot for anyone who wants to throw a ball around. But you have to go, if you've come from levels which are higher, I would take the warning of temper your expectations, because the way, if you turning up and doing like fitness before is not the done thing. Like, getting frustrated because I'm talking from our experience, running drills, just running through the drill for the sake of running through the drill and like trying to do 100 miles an hour and getting it wrong, I get frustrated at, because like, what is the point? Like, take the time, do it properly, understand why you're doing it, and then build it up. Getting frustrated when people are throwing no-look passes all the time when their skill level suggests they can't do it. It's not a criticism on the skill level. It's more the fact, what is the point? Like, the accuracy just drops. Like, just take the time to learn. But not everyone is wired that way. And so that, for me, is the biggest difference. And that's probably the one warning I would say for people who are on their way down, is just to go in open-minded, be prepared to be frustrated, but accept it for what it is. It's a good laugh. It's a good fun. And you'll see some things you won't normally see. Like, it's just how it is. Sometimes it feels like you're playing rugby with your dad, and the next thing it feels like you're playing rugby with your younger brother. Like, it's very weird, but it's good fun.
Amazing. Okay, we shall bring that bit of the show to a close there, and we'll move on to the stash section, which I haven't prepared you for because we did this before on the previous episode. But I'm going to ask you about Rugby World kits, Chris. So which out of the Rugby World Rugby World Cup kits have you enjoyed the most?
Right, so good question. I actually, and annoyingly, because they played Fiji on the weekend, everyone's like, oh yeah, it's Portugal, yeah, bandwagon. But the Portuguese kit is mint. It's like a nice hybrid between their football kit and like a rugby kit. I think it looks really classy. I thought the Uruguay kit was quite nice. The ones I can't stand, like the Welsh kit, it looks like, with their black one, it looks like you know when everyone or would just wear those kind of Fred Perry polo shirts? It kind of looks like one of those where it's like what, I don't understand what this is. But yeah, mate, the Portugal kit is lovely. The Fiji kit, I think everything about the Fiji kit, Nike have done it so well. Like not just their playing kit, but the t-shirts you see the coaches rocking around in, everything is just so, I think I'd say modern actually. Like it's more inclusive. It's kind of what you would see other sports producing for their normal team wear. So for me, I think that's best all round is probably Fiji, but the actual match shirt, probably Portugal, is quite nice.
Yeah, and they've got gold numbers on that Portuguese shirt as well, which is classy. Very, very classy.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing.
I'm just gutted. I just said I'm a bit gutted that Portuguese hooker, I think it was anyway, Taja, whatever his name is,
yeah,
who when he hit that ball into touch didn't just turn around and do the whole Ronaldo like Sue. That would have been just absolutely amazing. Like it would have just been incredible. But for another day.
Yeah, you can't have everything. Can't have everything. Right, Chris, if people want to get a hold of you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, like just probably on Instagram, to be fair, as you procrastinate daily on it. So that's that. And then any clubs who are, I guess, going through transition periods or on that kind of, they want to strip it all back and build and go again, then yeah, just ping me on that because it's what I'm looking at now for next season. So.
Okay, and that's at chris.swann, Swann with 2 N's, .10 on Instagram. And if people are interested in joining Woking Rugby Club, what's the best way for them to do that?
Don't, but yeah, I would go to our Instagram page. I think there's a couple of lads who will see the message on there, but if not, Wednesday, 7 till 9 in Byfleet, which is annoying because it's not actually Woking, so I was like, oh, fuck, it's an extra 10 minutes. But yeah, Byfleet is super easy, super relaxed. So
just rock up and do it. Okay, and everything we've mentioned in the show today will be in one place, which you can find at the amateurrugbypodcast.com. And it just leaves me to say, Chris, thanks very much for today. It's been really, really enlightening. Thank you.
No, it was awesome. Cheers, Tim. Thanks, mate.
There he goes. Such an incredible insight there. Thank you, Chris. Just a range of experiences all the way from sort of level 4, 5 down to 12 and all of the things from speaking to all those different clubs. So much good value in there. Thank you very much for that. And I'm putting lots of extra content out on YouTube at the moment. So head on over there and subscribe so you don't miss out on all that good stuff from the Rugby World Cup that's going on as I speak right now. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, you can do all the social media stuff. But what I'd really like is if you mention it to someone in person the next time you're down your local rugby club, whether that's Woking or any other club for that matter. But until then, get out and play.